The god before her had transformed, but the woman standing in front of him showed no sign of surprise. Contrary to his expectations, Jin Shi's hair fluttered in the wind, utterly ignoring the nonsense spewing from the god's mouth. Thinking she hadn't heard him, he repeated himself, "Worship me, sinners." Jin Shi scoffed. "I was already silent, and you still won't shut up." Pretentious fraud. She swung her arm forward, and the vines surged ahead at her command, immediately launching an attack on the god. Jin Shi's vines had evolved into sentient beings. As soon as they neared their target, their toothy maws gaped open and sank deep into the god's face. Their fangs tore through his skin. Refusing to let go, Jin Shi roared, "Drain his blood for me." But to her surprise, the god easily gripped the vines and pulled them away as if they were nothing. The vines had still wriggled, attempting to return, but it was futile. From this angle, the god's wings appeared stunning, pure white, like those of a true angel. His demeanor remained unruffled as he calmly removed the vine and said, "Angels have no blood. Why do you refuse to worship me? Does my pure appearance not deserve your reverence?" he asked. Jin Shi's response was crisp. "There is only one being worthy of my praise. You are not." The vines behind her spread wide, writhing in the air before lifting her high. From above, she cast a piercing glare down at the god. Compared to this winged being, who carelessly shed soft white feathers as he flapped, Jin Shi was the very image of a demon, his complete opposite. But just because he had white wings did not mean he was kind or merciful, denied the adoration he sought. The god's voice turned chilling. "Then let me grant you a taste of the death that awaits. I will trample and torment you." Only now did she catch a clear glimpse of his face. It was human-like save for his deep gray skin, which resembled cement. 3 golden pupils sat close together within his eye sockets, their eerie glow enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Under the gray sky, the grand statue of Qing Chang loomed over the city, built as a perfect replica of himself. It stood directly above the tunneling device gate in the city center. The silent tunneling device suddenly pulsed with blue light. A creature emerged from the teleportation array, spreading its wings and soaring into the sky. It was Zhu Juan, the falcon. Zhu Juan cried out urgently, "Qing Chang, Lin Feng. You two must destroy that stone pillar." The two were too busy fighting demonic beasts to pay him much attention. Lin Feng was about to ask why when Zhu Juan cut in anxiously, "It's activating a magic formation. I don't know what will happen, but we must destroy it. I can't stay here to help. I need to warn the others." With that, Zhu Juan's wings flared wide, his eyes flashing as he shot forward like a golden lightning bolt, heading back toward the tunneling device to continue his warnings. But before he could reach it, a beam of light shot down from the heavens, narrowly missing him as if trying to take him down. The agile falcon twisted midair, avoiding the blast. The energy veered past his wings and struck the tunneling device instead, triggering a deafening explosion. So that had been the true target. The falcon barely avoided being obliterated along with it. "Zhu Juan!" Qing Chang shouted, but the bird had vanished into the thick smoke. Such a precise attack could only mean the teleportation gate had been utterly destroyed. Atop a towering pillar, the god withdrew his power, murmuring, "Traitors do not deserve to live. Everything must be pure, even the elements." The green energy returned to him, merging with an already existing core of the same hue beneath his robe. No one knew what his body was truly made of. His face was featureless, yet he could see with terrifying clarity. Before him, 2 figures, one large and one small, charged toward him at full force, Qing Chang and Lin Feng, through the dense smoke. They locked eyes. "Lin Feng!" Qing Chang shouted. Without needing further instruction, Lin Feng understood. He lifted a pitch-black column with both hands. "The Blade of Darkness!" A weapon formed entirely from the shadows, he commanded. With it, he swung down at the pillar. "Watch as I reduce this place to nothing." Crack! The impact echoed across the sky, sending tendrils of darkness surging in all directions. But something was wrong. Why had the sound been so off? There was no debris, no sign that the pillar's surface had been damaged at all. Lin Feng bent his knee, pressing the tip of his blade down harder. But it was like trying to carve into stone with a pencil. It didn't pierce, it didn't even leave a scratch. "Oh shit!" Lin Feng cursed in frustration. He had used his full strength, yet there was not even a dent. Then, without warning, two beams of blinding light sliced through the air, striking Lin Feng and Qing Chang dead center. Their bodies were cut clean in half. Beyond the smoke, 3 golden eyes flickered ominously. The god's voice followed. You cannot destroy an element with physical force. That applies to me, and this pillar. For every speaker, there must be a listener. Qing Chang's and Lin Feng's bodies floated, split in two, until, impossibly, they stitched back together, so they hadn't died after all. One wielded the power of the earth, the other controlled the darkness. Both commanded elemental forces. Perhaps this god had been too quick to assume victory, preaching about elemental power, only to encounter an opponent who also wielded elemental strength. The only difference was that this time, he had seemingly transformed again, growing into an enormous, bizarre figure. Qing Chang was already a towering presence, nearly as tall as a 2-story building, yet, the creature before him was 10 times larger. As its form became clearer, the so-called god was revealed to be not just black but also streaked with a deep crimson hue, with 7 eyes of varying sizes arranged in a pattern resembling a papaya leaf. From this grotesque visage, the god's voice emerged. What rank are you? It seemed he was referring to the infamous ranking of the 10 ferocious beasts. Sigma and Epsilon, ranked 8th and 9th, were slain by you humans. He continued, so what rank are you? What a ridiculous question! If it was a ranking for the 10 ferocious beasts, why would he ask where 2 humans stood on the list? Neither Qing Chang nor Lin Feng had ever compared themselves to others, much less been part of such a ranking. They both bellowed in response, You're going to be disappointed. We don't even consider you worthy of our efforts. The god took a few steps forward, allowing them to fully take in his grotesque form. Beneath the crimson markings covering his chest was a maw filled with jagged, razor-sharp teeth. He seemed to lack arms entirely, but in their place were 3 monstrous, beast-like legs, hideously deformed. Whether this god was aware of his own monstrous appearance was unclear, but he still spoke with pride, boasting that he was ranked 3rd among the divine. Now, allow me to tear you apart. Not far from there, under the ashen sky, pristine white feathers stood out starkly against the backdrop of a writhing mass of crimson vines. The vines had grown to the size of towering columns, quickly wrapping around the winged god, entangling him in countless layers, constricting tighter and tighter. A sickening crack echoed as he was crushed, his white feathers falling like snow. But the most unexpected twist came when, despite his bound body, an immense surge of power erupted, not from his arms, nor his mouth, but from his radiant wings. She was caught off guard. The energy shot toward her face, forcing her to lean back in the nick of time. How could she have predicted that those wings could fire energy? The blast grazed her face, leaving a deep cut. Luckily, she had closed her eyes just in time. Pain surged through her, momentarily loosening her vines. The god leaned forward, laughing freely. Your attacks are useless. She, seething, snapped a vine forward and tore his head clean off. His robe split into 2 halves as she struck with blistering speed. The severed head tumbled freely, crashing onto the ground with a resounding thud, spraying blood in all directions. His body stood frozen like a statue, while his dismembered head flailed and writhed on the ground, its mouth opening and closing in a series of grotesque, overlapping voices. Look what you've done! How dare you show such disrespect to a god? One mouse shrieked, another interjected, You mustn't speak so rudely. Yet another whimpered, Oh Lord, please forgive me. She felt a shiver creep down her spine. What kind of god was this? Even after being beheaded, it could still talk. At least, it seemed to bleed, suggesting that the head was a weak point. Seizing the opportunity, she lashed out once more, her vines coiling around the chattering head, sealing its obnoxious mouth shut. Fangs sprouted from the tendrils, ready to drain it dry. Yet, amid the tightening tendrils, one of those eerie golden eyes glimmered mischievously. You are far too naive. With those final words, the severed head suddenly exploded. A tiny orb of light formed in its place, rapidly expanding into a massive sphere. It grew faster than she could react. Before she knew it, the immense energy sphere was upon her. It consumed everything in its path. The vines, gone, had she been. Erased by it as well? If she were still alive, she would have seen the god's true form, an abomination of tangled maws, oversized eyeballs, and writhing black tendrils, horrifying beyond words. So, can anyone guess what kind of god this is?